What's up, guys and gals? Welcome back to the Nerd Castle. Today in the world of indie games, we're going to be taking a look at a title called Dreadhunter. We had an opportunity to check this game out about a year ago, and I thought that the game was absolutely fantastic feeling, and it played very well, but it had a few little problems that needed to be sorted out, so I figured we'd take another look at it now that enough time has passed for patches to release, and this video is that video. So, if after watching this video you wanted to get Dreadhunter for yourself, it's an action RPG where you are a space bounty hunter annihilating all kinds of bad guys. I got a link for you down below in the description. There's also a bunch of other Nerd Castle links down there, just in case you wanted to take a look at those too. But let's take about 30 minutes and dive on into this action RPG and see if it's worth it. Okay, so now that we've gotten our treasure and our loot, let's go find this underground space bad guy that I'm supposed to be murdering for money. Murdering for money just feels so much better than murdering for free, I'm gonna be honest with you. If they didn't have the proper reciprocation here on a financial level, I don't know if I would dive down into these creepy caves to fight with all these random bioweapons and get the job done. But my character, what am I doing with my character? What kind of customizability exists inside the confines of this game? Well, there's loads of triggerable little things that you can do inside of this title as you customize out your Warframe-style space murderer. I'm actually specialized in electricity this time around. The last time we covered the game, I think I was playing around with proccing as many automatic missile shots as I possibly could as I went through the dungeon, and I did find that to be a whole lot of fun. But this time around they added a new type of gun recently called the electro gun, and I was instantaneously really fascinated by that idea, because inside of any video game that I've ever played in my entire life, I've always just been drawn to either lightning or ice. I don't know what it is about those two elements, but those are the two ones that always stand out for me. Other people prefer poison, some people might really like fire. For me, it's lightning, dude. I don't know what it is. I just have a deep-seated need to be the thunder god deep down inside of my system, and that's exactly what I've done with this character. Everything that I've done, from my equipment to the abilities that I'm purchasing, are meant to be almost entirely revolved around either arcing lightning off of enemies that I'm shooting, or making it so that as I fire at enemies, they become shocked, and thus when they die, something interesting happens. I've got lightning bolts coming down from the sky whenever I crit, so on top of that, I've been taking everything that I possibly can that increases my crit rate and also my fire rate, because at that point, if you're fishing for crits in order to get bigger, larger, nastier things to happen, you really just want to focus on those two stats as much as you possibly can. And luckily enough, the game does give you a lot of opportunities to play around with those stats. We got some loot laying up top. I gotta execute these guys right here. As I said, this game is heavily influenced by Doom 2016, and in fact, I don't know. This is a risky sentence, but I'm gonna say it anyways. I don't know if id actually knew how awesome of a system they designed when they came up with Doom 2016. To this day, I didn't actually like the follow-up to Doom 2016. I didn't like it altogether that much at all. There was too much weapon swapping. I felt like I was always starved for ammo. I felt like there was too many enemies that forced me to use certain weapons instead of the ones that I wanted. But the original iteration in Doom 2016 was actually, frankly, ingenious, and it's exactly what you're going to be seeing throughout the duration of this entire video. Doom 2016, for the 7 or 8 people on the planet who haven't played that title just yet, really functioned around this idea of a seesaw between you dealing damage with ranged weapons, and then once the enemies were staggered, they would have kind of a blinky mode. You'd go in and execute them. This game has the exact same system, and in fact, given the bullet hell WASD controls the game plays around with, I think it works very well. In this title, you're going to be spending a lot of time shooting enemies. That one right there is stunned. I finish him off with my melee weapon, and if I finish him off with my melee weapon, that means that I get a whole bunch of health pickups, and I end up getting myself also a bunch of ammo pickups. This guy's kind of big and chunky. I need him to, like, take a seat here. There we go. Go to sleep, man. You're getting in the way of my monologuing here. I'm talking to myself in my office so that I can further on send that to people on the internet, and you're making that difficult. This game functions exactly the same as Doom 2016. All of the weapons in this game are meant to attack the enemy until they stagger. Once they go into their stagger mode, that's when you're going to be able to execute them. I have an electro katana because, like I said, I went all in on everything I could possibly get that had lightning involved in its overall shtick. And if you do that, you will be rewarded, because inside this title, there is no way to heal except for health pickups. Like, you can't heal. There's no healing around unless you get it out of a chest or unless you get it from an executed enemy. You're not going to be able to heal yourself up. On top of that, ammo is actually really, really limited. If you don't, well, I wouldn't say really, really limited. I suppose you could kind of ignore the game's fundamental mechanic of seesawing back and forth between ranged and melee, but you're going to get a lot less ammo, you're going to get a lot less health. You can source that stuff from other places, breakable pots and stuff like that, but really, you're going to be a little bit starved for ammo, and you're going to be weapon swapping a lot more frequently. And since weapon swapping to me is like anathema, I'm cool with swapping in between like ranged and melee because the gimmick works, it persists, and it feels really, really good to interact with. But I don't like swapping in between like 4 and 5 different ranged guns. I tend to be the kind of player that picks and chooses my favorite. So interacting with the game's fundamental mechanic is going to be necessary for me. After we've hunted down our target, this is basically what every single level is going to look like. The game does have some very light narrative, but ultimately it's like, hey, this guy is war criming over there. And you're like, yeah, I'm going to stop him from war criming. Let's go. Drop onto the planet, eliminate everybody, and then you're going to go back to a centralized hub where maybe they'll feed you up a couple more MacGuffins for the narrative, but that's where you're going to be modifying and taking care of all of your weaponry so that it gets stronger. Here's one of those narrative segments right here. Dreads have overrun an old traveler's temple. They've destroyed the original sculptures founded there and erected a monstrous effigy of Banshee. Right, to turn locals towards their cause and a new shape. I hate how Dreads splash their goo on our heroes and symbols. Travelers spent their lives navigating through the void to find new sectors and build gates, but not only started new colonies, but also served as beacons of life for future generations. I wonder how one can leap into the darkness with only a glimmered hope of finding something. Probably the same reason why you'd want to spend your life killing monsters. Do you see anybody else who could do it? Exactly. The portraits in this game, they are generated by AI art. I'm hoping those will get swapped out. It was my thought that they were going to get swapped out as the game continues along and develops, but we're a year later here, and unfortunately that's still there as kind of like this gaping wound in an otherwise perfect score for a game that I really, really enjoy. But back inside the hub, after you get fed up your narrative driplets, there's a couple things you can interact with over here. You've got your mod table, and you've got your market, and then of course you've got a number of other menus where you can level up and you can customize your character. These are split up into 2 different sets of skill trees actually. So for right now, you've got your abilities. As you use your abilities and as you kill enemies with those abilities equipped, they accumulate XP. At certain junction points, you will get a new point that you can put into the tree over here in order to make that ability perform in a way that you find to be satisfying to your gameplay experience. I don't know. Right now I'm running an ability called Barrage that allows me to launch missiles all over the place. It did indeed level up during our last run, and so I'll add an ability to get +1 missiles to the barrage whenever it fires. I was thinking about trying to find myself like a cooldown reduction on this bad boy too, but they look like little clocks, and there's got to be like a wing around here that does it, but not important for the time being. I also have Bullet Storm. That's the ability that you saw me using that opens up a targeting reticle and just wildly sprays bullets at everything in front of you. I have been specializing that, and not very much because I just got it. But once I've got it leveled up, I'm planning on going full in on extra bullets. I want as many bullets to come out of this barrage as humanly possible so that I can shred the enemy to pieces and turn them into Swiss cheese. You've also got a generalized character tree over here that you can play around with in order to level up your character. It's got all the different things that you'd be looking for. So you've got like self-preservation stuff over here, melee combat over here, range combat being the main focus of this game though. You're going to have a much larger spread or a web over here that's going to branch into all the different types of weapons that you can play around with. As of right now, they've got kinetic weapons, they've got plasma weapons, they've got electro weapons, and they've got explosive weapons. Kinetic being just like bang bang, it shoots a bullet. Explosive, missiles. Electro, exactly what I'm using right now. And then plasma weapons, they fire a very, very slow bullet that's like wum, 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 wum. It travels slowly, but if you manage to lead and hit the enemy with it, they tend to do way better damage than everything else. However, you can sort of fix the problem with the bullets moving slowly through the game's modding system. So over here on the modding table, every single character in this game is going to have 3 weapons. You've got a light weapon, a medium weapon, and a heavy weapon. Right now, I've got a surge gun as my light weapon. It's It's basically an SMG that fires at the enemy, and it will arc lightning in between all of them. It deals less damage in single target fights, but in large target fights where there's lots and lots of enemy density in a target-rich environment, this guy actually turns out to have way more DPS than written on the tin. I've also got the lightning gun over here. The lightning gun, it doesn't have as many hops when I shoot the enemy, but this guy right here hits way harder. It's got a higher crit chance, and it triggers my little AoE lightning bolts that come down from the sky whenever I crit very frequently, and so I've mostly been running this guy. I've also got my voltaic katana down here, which has a chance to put shocking on the enemy and slow him down. There's a bunch of things that you can stack that give you bonuses and stuff like that whenever you kill a shocked enemy, and so it's probably going to work into my overall strategy. You've also got 7 pieces of armor that you can equip, and all of this stuff is fully customizable. The armors will have an implicit a lot of the time. You can see the implicit on this helmet, so enemies killed by your electro guns will create a thunderbolt. This one right here, your missiles deal 25% more explosion damage. However, that's not the only way that they help out your character. Every single one of these pieces of equipment is customizable with the little hash marks you see down below it that say armor plus 10%, absorb chance plus 2%. So things that drop inside of dungeons will randomly have mods on them. You can put these mods on yourself should you desire to do so inside the modding menu. These are all of my mod packs over here, and if I wanted to mod something, I just right click it on into here. It will phase out all the things that this item can't mount, and then I'll be able to add more stuff to it in order to give myself a better chance to have ammo drops while I'm moving through, or to make my bullets move faster, or to increase my lightning damage. All that stuff is included here. However, the amount of mods that you can install, the amount of mod pips, is limited by the level of the item, which is obviously going to keep you moving forward, leveling up, finding higher level versions of the stuff that you already have, hopefully already with the mods on it that you find to be satisfying. And so that's how the customization goes with your character. Let's go ahead and check the market real fast and see if there's anything good over here that I feel like will round out my overall strategy. And we've got Thunderstrike shoulders. I'll lose my missile damage, but this does play into my strategy a little bit better, so my Thunderbolt hits have 50% chance to shock nearby enemies. I think that's a really good idea, because it should give us a really nice AoE slowing effect on everything that I'm shooting at, which stops them from closing the gap and shredding my face. Over here we've got Ionic Gloves, so plasma guns will shoot 2 more projectiles, but they deal much less damage. That's actually kind of an interesting idea. I kind of dig that. We've also got this Tempest Lower Armor over here. This will give us a chance for our it actually gives us just +1 chain on any chain lightning type proc or ability, which is kind of nice. I've got this Thunderstrike Lower Armor over here, though, that makes it so that my Thunderbolts get double damage. So I'm triggering a lot of Thunderbolts, and so I think I'd like to keep that where it's at. As far as mods go, I'll probably buy the fire rate. I will probably buy absorb damage, might be nice. Experience gain might be a good one to pick up just so that I can level up a little bit faster, because I haven't seen a whole lot of things that I can mount on my helmet yet that I feel like will actually be a big deal. Now that I've sold off the remainder of my equipment, it's time for us to dive back into a mission, apparently on Sejong. So we've got to go to a traveler's temple, and we've got to destroy a statue of Banshee that's converting people into space zombies. The work never stops, man. The work never stops. It's always space zombies, space bugs, you know, space war crime scientists. It's always something that I'm having to deal with out here. On the plus side, in today's very high-paced market, where it's very difficult to get a job, it's nice to have job security, I suppose. Is that guy stunned yet? Man, I feel like I've been wailing on that guy for a hot minute. Down in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen, I just realized I didn't really go over the UI, but honestly, it's a really simple UI. But it does fit in with all the other things you're going to be doing inside the confines of the game. We've got our health meter in red. Don't lose all that. You die if you lose all of that. I know, shocker, right? Whoever heard of a video game that kills you when your HP goes down to 0? But then from there, underneath that, the blue meter is going to be our XP. We've also got 3 little light bulbs underneath that. If you watch them right now, those are my dashes. You can get things that will increase the amount of dash charges you get just in case you want to zoom around even more rapidly. And then underneath that, you've got my abilities and whether or not they're on cooldown. I don't know if there's any meaning to the 3 little hashes that are next to each of those. I don't really honestly know, but for right now, I haven't really questioned it too much. Now, let's go ahead and churn our way through these dudes just to make sure we've got a very nice selection of ammunition to play around with, and then we'll see what we can spray out down here. I think most of these guys are ready to be popped, so I'll just pop them now. Fire some missiles at them. Hopefully that'll finish them off. Very explosive visual effects. This is one of those games that does just about everything it does very, very well. The last time I played the game, I talked about the fact that content is going to be the main hurdle that this game needs to get over because their core gameplay precepts are all in the right place and they're all feeling shockingly good to interact with. Everything from running to shooting to slaughtering enemies to picking up pickups to the soundtrack to the way that everything sounds and feels tactily as you're playing the game. It all feels fantastic. I have no complaints on those fronts. However, I do think that having now played the game for 3 or 4 hours, I do think that they're still going to need to have more item variety, more subspecs of things that happen inside of each gun selection. I do think that they're going to have to get a lot more enemy varieties as well. I think I've reached the point after 4 hours where I'm more or less seeing enemies that I've seen before in every single mission. The good news is the selection of enemies they already have do keep you moving, they do keep you on your toes, and they do require different strategies in order to deal with. All of the standard culprits are going to be here. You've got enemies that jump at you, you've got enemies that put AoEs on the ground, you've got enemies that have kind of a charge-like attack, you've got enemies that will just follow you around, and if they ever make contact with your character, they explode, dealing a bunch of damage. You've got enemies that if you don't finish them off with an execution, they also AoE explode, which can be very dangerous for your character because, in fact, this is a really punishing game. I don't know if my armor rating is just really, really low compared to where it's supposed to be, but when you take a hit in this game, you are 100% going to feel that hit. Even if it's from a smaller enemy, chances are it's probably going to get you for about 2 health chunks. There's also a lot of larger attacks that are going to take much more than 2 health chunks if you get caught by them. That's kind of the reciprocity of this game, giving you so much mobility and so many dash charges with such a generous cooldown, is that you need to be moving all the time, otherwise you are going to get lit the hell up, and it is gonna hurt. I think my missile barrage probably take care of that pack right there. I don't think I have to get creative with it, just push one button and collect my winnings. On top of that, there's not a whole lot of, so they've done a really, really good job. I think when I covered this game the first time, I talked about how there weren't a lot of item varieties just yet. There's not a lot of gun varieties just yet. They are getting there in the last year. They've added several new types of guns that have like little variants and things. They have added new armors and new interactions. And on top of that, one of the things I complained about was that the game didn't really have a whole lot of tile sets. The last time I played the game, you were more or less trundling around inside the same scientific facility for most of your stay. They would kind of change the coloration around. They would sort of change some of the doodads and stuff in the background. I'm happy to say, actually, that they've more or less fixed that. There's a bunch of new tile sets now that keep the game looking and feeling fresh as you're playing through it. Man, this thing is not taking damage. That's got me feeling kind of nervous. Let's go ahead and barrage them down while I refill my ammo real quick. And it looks like this is actually just gonna be an ad fight. For these ad fights, I do find that going for the gun that's got better leap tends to be a good idea, so that you're still getting damage off on the main target, even though you're focusing on the ads and whatnot. Kill this statue off, come on. But they have fixed that problem, but I do think right now with the environments that they have, there is not a lot of interaction. There's no booping buttons. There's no like dropping ladders or anything. There's no secret areas that you can suss out. For a game that's so heavily Doom inspired, I would recommend getting those things on in there just to reinforce the association that they're going for with their Doom-like mechanics. Everybody likes finding secrets. Everybody gets that little hit of dopamine whenever they do it. If I run up on this thing, I was going to say, will I get more damage out of it? I am running catastrophically low on ammo right now. Let me look around the arena. Yeah, that'll do me. That'll do me just fine. That's the stuff that I'm looking for. I need you to die, too. Can you do that for me? You're a big mob, so you should give me a whole bunch of ammo when I murk you. But, yep, all of you guys need to give me ammo. Ow, explosive stuff in my face right now. Let's go back over to our heavy hitter. And I'm going to try to put a little bit more damage on the statue over here. Boss fights, they tend to be like a souped-up version of a normal enemy that you've already fought, or they tend to be a fight like this where you're trying to kill a MacGuffin while things chase you around the room. Hasn't been too much variation there. I do think that they have room in order to make the boss fights pop and become a lot more memorable. But, you know, early access games. I get the feeling with this team that they're kind of like tackling things as they go along, and they're sort of attacking things as they gather feedback, and since the game doesn't necessarily have a massive fan base, it's, you know, slow going when it comes to collecting all of your feedback from your potential players. Man, I'm using up all my ammo, killing off these titanic dorks over here that just won't die. All right, 90-something bullets. We should be good. I'm going to go with Barrage right here just to get a little bit of that damage off on the enemy. Maybe churn through them for a little more ammo. Maybe I shouldn't even be shooting at this thing. Maybe this is the problem with my build. My build has like no single target damage whatsoever. It's really, really good for melting hordes, which is what I enjoy doing. But all things considered, once we come up against something with a stiff health bar, it's going to be a little bit of a headache. Let's finish this thing off. Missiles. Barrage. There it is. All the enemies are going to despawn. We're going to get our fat pile of loot, and then I'm actually accidentally going to go through the gate and send myself back to base. Which kind of sucks because I think there was more loot inside the room that I could have picked up, but like, que sera, sera. So back at base here, we do need to sift through all of the stuff to figure out what we want to do. We have a gun that has 10% more fire rate, so it's already got 6 out of its 7 mods on it right now. But I will swap that for the one that I have because that should allow me to pump up critical chance a little bit. I'm going to run whichever of these two guns has the highest critical chance between the two of them because that just works for what I'm trying to do. We didn't really get any pickups that are going to be anything to write home about, so I just went ahead and vendored everything real fast before we get back on the road here. We do have a glass katana up on this side, and it does have much superior DPS to what we're rocking with right now. I want to take the bullet storm. I want ability critical damage would be nice. I guess I'll take the barrage too. And then from there, we do have a helmet that I've been looking for. So this helmet, anybody that I kill with an electro gun will discharge their electricity to 3 other nearby enemies. I like that. I think that's really, really good, so I'll go ahead and take it. But everything else inside of here is not looking like something that I want to rock with. Let me throw on my new helmet real fast. I've been rocking this level 1 helmet for a hot minute while playing this game. And so I'm glad that I finally got it swapped out. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to mod. It's already got most of its mods on it, which is kind of a bummer. So I wish that was not the case, but that's life. You can't always get what you want. So with this guy right here, we want crit. We want crit all day long. I don't have any crit modules, which is kind of a bummer. Okay. I need to replace my lightning gun too. It's got knockback on it, which I'm not really married to. I'd like to have that extra slot open for something else. And therein comes kind of the loot hunt in this game, is that you're trying to find that perfect gun that has the things going on with it that you want it to have going on, like, you know, damage. I mean, even damage I could sacrifice here. I legitimately don't care about the damage. If I could get one of these to drop that already had like 4% crit on it, and then 2 empty slots that I could mod other things onto, like crit damage or lightning damage, that'd be the stuff right there. But unfortunately, it doesn't actually look like we've got that many things to do back here at base right now. Let's go to Bereniki. All right, Bereniki, what you got to show me out here? A big, giant gorilla guy that needs to get got. Fire missiles at him. Maybe that'll knock him loose. It did not. He is built for wear and tear, unfortunately, and he caught me with a little swipe right there. Fire missiles at him. Man, you ever gonna die for me there, bro? It may be time for some weapon upgrades. That's what I'm thinking, is maybe I'm a little bit behind the churn when it comes to my weapon upgrade. Did I ever equip that new sword? I don't think that I did. I've still got a blue sword on me. And from what I recall, the one that I just purchased was all kinds of rojo. And so, there we go. Just churn those guys up. I find this game to be really satisfying to play, to be honest. This is like the perfect turn your brain off and just like put on a podcast or like even so, like even with the soundtrack and the sound effects and whatnot, I honestly don't think you need to turn on a podcast. The game is entertaining enough to stand on its own 2 feet, what with the constant movement and your character always having to be in a variable state in order to finish off the level without getting absolutely shattered. That guy backhanded me into next week. Rude. Give him some of that. Ow. Swap over here. Come on, give me my lightning arcs. I'm gonna slaughter him on up. Oh my god, my health is in a terrible way right now. Fire more missiles. Need damage on this dude all day long. There we go. Give me some of that sweet space gorilla health. That's where they actually get health potions from in the future. There's space gorillas. They have like a gland or something. I don't know. I wasn't on the research team that made it happen. You also get environmental damage when you're shooting at things right here. It looks like on this side they're genetically engineering whatever I am or the suits or whatever in order to go to war against us, and so I'm guessing that this lab is up to no good. There's lots of room for growth with this game. There's lots of things they could add on into it. To my eye right now, the hard part is absolutely 100% done. They've got the gameplay rocking and feeling uber satisfying. Like, this is a game that just positively drips off the screen and just feels amazing while you're playing it. It's got the feel down entirely. The core gameplay loop is good. It's solid. It balances randomness with player agency when it comes to designing your own gear and trying to find that perfect piece of equipment that's got enough slots on it for you to add more things to it that you would like, while also getting a couple things for free in the mail. And so I really, really dig what it's got going on. Places that it could get a little bit stronger: item variety, ability variety, just the random implicits that you get on gear, I think could use a lot more variety as well. I think each ability type is going to have like 6 or 7 different gimmicks that you can sort of mix and match between and like trigger off of each other in order to make the whole thing come together. If you think of a game like Path of Exile, or you think of a game like Diablo, although to a much less extent Diablo nowadays, but Path of Exile, let's just look at Path of Exile. There is basically an infinite amount of permutations and combinations for players to fiddle with in that game in order to get the build out that the player wants to play around with. It's now time to start expanding that field on out for this game and making that stuff happen. No, not my disc launcher. I don't want my disc launcher right now. On top of that, as I previously mentioned, environmental interactions I think would be a good come up. Finding secrets that are full of stuff that you can utilize to power up your character, or maybe find a mini-boss, or maybe kick off some kind of event that varies up the gameplay a little bit, makes it a little bit more interesting. I mean, there's a million billion seasons of like Last Epoch, Path of Exile, Diablo to look at, to find like little repurposed gimmicks that you can play around with to make the maps more interesting and have fun little interactions inside of them. If you wanted to keep it simple, just Doom secrets I think would help a lot, or like catwalks that you've got to find a button to push so that you can get across them. Things that make the world feel like you're working your way through an enemy facility and trying to wipe out everything along the way. Another problem that I think this game is really going to have to contend with is just the fact that its price is very, very high for what it is. This is a game in early access, and I think from the core gameplay loop, it's incredibly promising. I've always thought that since the first time that I played around with it, because so many games have great ideas, but ultimately the execution doesn't feel good to play around with. This game is kind of like the opposite. The gameplay feels absolutely fantastic, but there's a lot of room for them to add more stuff and keep the variety up, especially when you consider that this is a $35 game in a field of action RPGs. Like if you look at one of the biggest competitors, Path of Exile, that game's completely and totally free. You'll probably have to buy a stash upgrade or like a stash organizer to really seriously play the game. So that's like 10 or 20 bucks if you can get it on sale or not. But really, the point of access for one of the greatest action RPGs ever made is free fitty. You know, that's very, very difficult to compete with, and I do think there's a fundamental problem here where the game is priced very, very high by comparison to a lot of the other stuff out there that you can grab onto. Like I said, in the case of Path of Exile, you're looking at, free. You can just play that right this second. Whereas if you take a look at something like Last Epoch Epoch's priced in at $35, but that's a completed project that has a full-on end game. It's got loads of legendaries and items and synergies and stuff like that to play around with. I do think this game would actually do a lot better if they priced it down to like 10 or 15 bucks. At that price range, this game would be an absolute steal for what it is, and then they could just flesh out the content from there. but the price point actually is a big sticking point for me with this game too. And it's a shame because they've got something really awesome here that they're playing around with. But by and large, I like Dreadhunter. It just needs more, just like the last time that I covered it. They're doing their best to fill that on in. There have been new gun types. There have been new things to play around with since the last time I played the game, and I've enjoyed those new things quite a bit. But you got to keep it coming. Action RPGs, man, they've got to have loads and loads of variety when it comes to the amount of things you can loot and kill and do if they really want to stick with a generalized audience. And so my name is Splattercat. I sift through the pile to find what's worthwhile in the world of indie games every single day so you don't have to. Today up on the chopping block, it was Dreadhunter. Tomorrow to be something else. Bye, folks.